Good evening, and thank you for watching. My name is Arren Kimbel-Sannit. I cover the House of Representatives for the Arizona Capitol Times, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate, in which we will hear from the three candidates vying for a House seat in Arizona's 21st Legislative District. We have Representative Payne, a Republican, Beverly Pingerelli, also a Republican, and Knecht, a Democrat. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections hosts debates so that voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issue that matter most to them, and vote informed. Candidates that have a contested general election have been invited to participate in the debate. Candidates that have opted into the Clean Elections Clean Funding Program are required to participate, while traditional candidates are invited and encouraged to attend. Please note, candidates from both the Senate and House may be participating in the debate tonight, although that is not the case. We have all House folks here this time. As the moderator, I will ensure that candidates have the opportunity to engage directly with their respective opponents. The questions that will be asked this evening are coming directly from voters, a few from myself. Leading up to the debates, Clean Elections conducted outreach to voters across the state, soliciting questions about the candidates. You can continue to submit those questions by either emailing at debates@kc-a.com, texting at 928-362-1062, or making a phone call to 480-937-1297. We ask that you specify if your question is for a specific candidate or for all candidates, and we will remind you that we screen those questions for clarity to eliminate duplication, speeches, screeds, personal attacks, and so on. This debate is scheduled for around an hour, give or take, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. Candidates, you have 1 minute for your opening statements, your closing statements, and 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to each voter question. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between opponents, so if you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments, you may do so at any time, although I may limit responses to keep people on track and for time management purposes. This is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment, and our goal tonight, above all, is to connect candidates and voters, so our electorate may vote informed. Now, as I said, here today we have Representative Payne, Republican, hoping to hold on to his seat in LD21, Beverly Pingerelli, hoping to continue the tradition of Republican rule in the district, and Knecht, who is running as a Democrat. Now we have an opportunity for opening statements. We'll begin, in this case, I suppose, with incumbency. So Representative Payne, if you want to take a minute for your opening statement, go ahead.
Thank you, Arren, and thank everyone for watching. My name is Kevin Payne. I'm your current District 21 representative at the Arizona House. I've served there for 4 years. I'm a native Arizona. I'm married with 4 children, grown sons all, and they've blessed us with 8 wonderful grandchildren. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I've proudly served my nation, and after the Navy, I consulted as electrical engineer for the Navy for 3 years, and I spent 5 years in aerospace. I spent the next 22 years working in information technology. Past 5 years, my wife and I have operated a small business, so I know what it's like to deal with overburdensome regulations, taxes, and making a payroll. All this experience has helped me while serving down at the State House. Since serving in the House, I've served on the Ways and Means, Federalism, and Transportation Committees. I currently serve as the chairman of Public Safety Committee and the vice chairman of Government and a member of the Transportation Committees. As chairman of the Public Safety Committee, I get to hold the line against extremist groups who want to defund our police and leave us vulnerable to mob rule. My voting record includes increased education funding and teacher pay, making Arizona the new jobs capital of Arizona because we keep our taxes low, eliminate burdensome regulations, and I'm an active proponent for real border security and an end to the flow of the illegal drugs, crime, violence that crosses it. I look forward to this evening, and thanks again for taking the time to watch.
Representative, thank you. Let's now switch parties and go with Knecht. Your opening statement, please.
Thank you, Arren, and thank you to the Clean Elections Commission. I am Knecht, and I'm running for the Arizona House to represent all the people in LD21. I have deep roots here in the West Valley. I was an elementary school teacher, a 12-year public school board member, and I was the president of the Arizona School Boards Association. I ran a regional nonprofit leadership development corporation here in the West Valley, and I'm dedicated to serving our local community and growing a strong local economy. I've dedicated my life to public service, serving on dozens of nonprofits addressing economic development, the arts, senior issues, and domestic violence. I was an honorary commander at Luke Air Force Base, and now I volunteer there as a lifetime member of the Blue Blazer Squadron. I've always been an independent thinker and a pragmatic bipartisan leader. I'm focused on strengthening our schools, ensuring that our seniors and our families have affordable quality health care, and bringing high-paying jobs to the Northwest Valley in Arizona.
Great. Kathy, thank you. Beverly Pingerelli, your turn. You're on mute, Beverly.
No, I'm not showing mute.
Oh, well, now you're good. Please go
Okay.
ahead.
Sorry about that. Good evening. I'm Beverly Pingerelli, Republican candidate for the Arizona House of Representatives. I'd like to thank my supporters in the Payne Elections Commission for sponsoring this forum, as well as fellow candidates for their participation. I'd like to take this moment to Okay, let's start again. I think I was covering my mic. Good evening. I'm Beverly Pingerelli, a Republican candidate for the Arizona House of Representatives. I'd like to thank my supporters and Clean Elections Commission for sponsoring this forum, as well as fellow candidates for their participation. I'd like to take this moment to share what I believe in, and if elected, how I will work to help the citizens of Arizona. I will protect life, families, and faith, defend constitutionally guaranteed rights, grow Arizona's economy through lower taxes and responsible regulatory reforms, keep our neighborhoods safe by supporting our police, work to lower drug prices and provide better health care, create a back-to-basics approach for education, reading, math, science, and history, expand school choice as well as career, technical, and vocational training, improve the quality of education in our district schools, and create more high-paying jobs. I look forward to discussing how to improve the lives and provide opportunity for Arizona citizens. Thank you. And thanks for the second try.
Thank you, Beverly. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
That's okay.
Great. So now that we've gotten those out of the way, I want to start first, I suppose, with kind of current events. Right now at the legislature, there is a group of Republicans who really want to go back in a special session to further help the state in its recovery from coronavirus. There's Democrats who want to go back to the legislature in a special session for their own reasons, COVID related and otherwise. I'd like to hear from each of you whether you would support either of these efforts to go back to a special session soon, if not immediately, rather than waiting until the next regular session, which seems to be the instinct of Governor Doug Ducey, and if so, what kind of things you would hope that lawmakers would accomplish in this special session. Representative Payne, since you are already there, we'll start with you. What's your stance on the special session issue, and if you're in support of it, what's gained by going to the legislature right now?
Thank you, Arren. I'm sorry, Arren. My stance is basically, I would like to see us come back into a special session. I'm upset that we haven't done so yet. I signed on to a petition with 17 other Republican House members and 6 Republican Senate members. That's woefully short of what we need. We need 40 in the House and 20 in the Senate. So we're a long ways from getting there. Even if we had every single Republican in the House, we'd only have 31. We'd need 9 Democrats, and not one single Democrat signed on to the petition in order to start it back up. So this is the first I'm hearing actually that Democrats want to start their own session. What I'd like to accomplish is back in 2002, when the law was written to start this emergency status that the governor is taking, it wasn't defined real well as to what constituted an emergency. So I would like to clarify that a little bit, and I would also like to have in there a time limit as to how long it can go without the legislature coming into play. Right now, I think the 90 heads that we have down there are better than one. So I'd like to see us with 91 thinkers instead of just one.
Thank you. And Kathy, I'd like to kind of get your input in here. You know, some Democrats think that a special session would be too much trouble for what it's worth. Some Democrats think that we need to go back to address police reform, the coronavirus, and so on. What do you think? Obviously, you're not there yet, but if you were an elected official, would you be advocating that we return in a special session right now, or are you advocating for the more cautious approach?
No, I absolutely believe that when people in the state of Arizona are concerned, if they're feeling anxious, if they're worried about their housing and their jobs and their kids in school, then the leaders of this community should get together and come together and do some problem solving on behalf of the people of Arizona. And you know, it shouldn't matter if it's Republicans or Democrats who decide to call a special session. I think true leaders recognize that now is the time to step up and work together in a bipartisan way. There are lots of things that people need to be thinking about right now during this crisis. And if ever there was a time to stop partisan bickering and come together as a unified body in the legislature, now would be it.
Now, Beverly, we'll turn to you. Do you join this consensus that's forming here? And if so, what are some things that you think that we should be accomplishing if we were to go back in special session?
Well, I think that this maybe will be our only unanimous vote between all three, but I do agree that we should go back in special session. I know in terms of litigation, I know people are afraid to open businesses back up, that they'll be sued. You know, with the school districts, there's always issues. I think that they should get back and actually get done and finish things out strong. So this is a unanimous vote. So we'll see how it goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, can I add to that, please?
Please, Representative, go ahead.
Thank you. Before we sine died, or in the session this year, I was one of the ones that voted to not sine die. Unfortunately, somebody's at our door. I'm sorry about that. I voted not to sine die. I wanted to keep working. I wanted to keep going. We were able to legislate at a distance. People could wear masks. They could Zoom into the legislature. They could vote from their offices. They didn't have to come down to the floor. So I thought it was very premature for us to end that session when we ended it, but we had 29 Democrats vote to end it. And although Kathy states that she'd be, more grown up than the other 29, that's yet to be seen. So I was very upset that we closed it, and I'm very upset that we can't open it again. We need votes from both sides. It has to be a partisan vote, and so far it has not been.
Great. Kathy, I do want to turn to you briefly. This is a question that we got from a voter. They point out correctly that you have in the past run for office as an independent, now running under the Democratic banner. Wondering if you could just sort of explain, why you chose to join the party in this election, and why that's sort of important to you, and whether that has marked a change in ideology or just in strategy.
It's really. Well, look, it's not about me. It isn't about party. It's really about restoring bipartisanship and working for my local community. Most people know that I did run as an independent last time in 18, and I was an independent for 24 years. And in that last election, I did very well. I got 48% of the vote, despite the extra challenges of running without a party. I am an independent thinker and a pragmatic leader, and I'm very practiced in serving in a nonpartisan and independent way. When my job as the executive director of Leadership West was training and networking with community leaders, I never let partisan politics invade our work there. And when I was on the school board, I would stay focused on the needs of the stakeholders without regard to their politics. It's just not helpful to get bogged down in partisan bickering. I want to improve our schools, make healthcare more affordable, increase job opportunities. I don't think those are partisan issues. And selecting a party that's working on the same things is a pragmatic decision. I want to work with everyone who wants to move Arizona forward and towards a brighter future.
Now, for our Republican friends, do we trust that when you hear that from someone who was an independent talks about their pragmatic abilities? Do you think, based on how you've seen the Democrats act, do you think that basically the Kathy will be able to maintain those pragmatic values if she's elected and works with the rest of the Democrats? Representative Payne, will go to you.
Thank you, Arren. Quite frankly, no, I don't. I haven't seen that yet down at the House. They pretty much lockstep, marching together down that road. We work across the aisle as often as we can, and there are a few that do, but for the most part, that I never see that happen. It's a very partisan place. So I think she'd be in for an extreme challenge. I don't think she realizes how her party will hold her feet to the fire, but it will happen.
May I say?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I've never worked with Mr. Payne, so he has no idea how I worked or my reputation as representing all the people that I'm charged with representing. I have role models in the Arizona State Legislature right now. Senator Carter, Senator Bowie, both have really taken courageous leadership stances to work with people across the aisle. And it's that kind of leadership that I admire and seek to emulate. People who always want to do the right thing and are working for the people and not a party.
Great. Beverly, I'm interested, you are now competing essentially with Kathy for an open seat. Mm-hmm. With the departure of Representative Tony Rivera, left a seat open. Democrats see LD21 as an opportunity to actualize their longstanding goals of flipping the House. What is the argument to voters for why this district should have 2 Republican representatives as opposed to a split Democratic and Republican representation? Why should this stay in GOP hands? What can you bring to the table that the Democrats cannot bring to the table?
Well, I've been on the school board, the Peoria Unified School District Governing Board. I've served 4 years with Ms. Knecht. And just for the last question, I don't see, just with my working with Ms. Knecht, that she would be a bipartisan, just from my dealings with her. But in terms of LD21 is majority conservative. So I think that people elect their representation or representatives to go to represent their beliefs and values. And so there's no problem in having 2 Republicans in a Republican-leaning district.
Mm-hmm.
May I reply?
Please.
There is a plurality that is a Republican. There is a majority that is Democrat and independent. And I really think, in the phone conversations I'm having with voters today, that people are really tired of the partisan bickering, that everything is put in the context of whose side are you on. This doesn't have to be a win-lose. We need leaders who can find win-win solutions for people. And that means not leaving a big chunk of our community without a voice, without representation. I am committed to serving all the people that I am elected to serve, just like I did on the school board for 12 years, just like I did for 245 school districts when I was the president of the School Boards Association. It can be done with leaders who have some political courage and some will to do so. And I think Arizona is more than ready for some leaders who are willing to do that.
And can I follow up on that also?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a wide range of endorsements. One of my endorsements is our past superintendent, Linda Pellis-Thompson. She's a hardcore Chicago Democrat, but I really pushed to get her in as a superintendent. She has endorsed me. I've had endorsements from Republicans and hardcore Democrats and independents. So if you look at my endorsements, it's very broad. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'm wondering if there's some things that both of you guys could share from your tenure on the school board that demonstrates to voters, how you can be not just an ideologue for your party, but an effective lawmaker, someone who is able to govern effectively. We'll go back to Kathy first. Are there any kind of standout accomplishments for you that you would want to offer to the voters as evidence of your abilities as a policymaker and as a leader?
Um, Remember during the Red for Ed, I was actually interviewed on television, and I was asked then, about partisanship and party loyalty. And I'll tell you, when I look out at the teachers that are fighting for better funding for education, so that they can do their job of educating our students without getting second and third jobs, I can tell you that they are of all political stripes. They are Republicans, they are Democrats, they are independents, and people who have never even registered to vote. But they all care about the same thing. They all want to work a hard day's work and be paid fairly for that, and not have to look at surrounding states to get a paying job. I think that's the best example that I can give. And some of the finest school board members that I worked with, I was always an independent when I was on the school board. Some of the finest school board members that I worked with are registered Republicans. And you know what? It never once mattered. We worked to do the right things for kids. And I really hope that we can get past this conversation about partisanship. There are much more important things to talk
about. Beverly, now maybe some accomplishments from your time on the school board that you'd like to discuss?
Well, I just wanted to also mention we have policy BCA, which is that we sign that if we take a vote that and it doesn't go in our way, we're in the minority, that we don't go out and trash other board members. And that wasn't the case with Mrs. Knecht. At times when votes didn't go her way, things showed up on Facebook. I tried. Actually, I don't go out and trash any of the other board members. We have a board of 5. And so there's a lot of votes that have gone my way and not gone my way. I guess in terms of the biggest accomplishment, we had a management turnover, and we had a superintendent that had decided to leave abruptly. And I think I was a board president at that time. I think that I was able to carry things through. We were able to get a very stable superintendent, and I've always been focused on student achievement.
Great.
Thank you.
Kathy, did you want to respond to what Beverly said there?
I will always make comments about issues that I think are important to our community, and I do not make personal attacks.
Arren, I'd like to chip in a little bit, even though I wasn't on the school board.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Down at the House, we have a lot of partisan votes where everybody joins in. There will be bills that pass out 60 to 0, but there are other bills. There are other certain topics that ring in as very partisan. So you end up being 31-29 as we were the last 2 years, and on quite a few bills, but other ones can absolutely go out 58 to nothing or 59, 60 to nothing. So it happens a lot down there. However, the school board, they don't vote in a vacuum. So to say that I know nothing about what has been accomplished down at the school board and what your voting record looks like, Kathy, is not exactly accurate. I know that you have voted for an awful lot of school bonds, and you like to tax the taxpayer. So that's not a nonpartisan issue. So let's not pretend it is.
That is a.
But I would probably counter that there are school districts in Republican areas that have voted for bonds and overrides as well. But I do want to get into this point.
Ours is one of them.
Yeah. So I want to get into this point. We're seeing on the ballot this year really 2 competing visions for education funding. In the Invest in Ed initiative, obviously, it's a controversial topic, especially among conservatives. I'd like to sort of hear from each of you, what your stance is on that ballot initiative, which I think is now Prop 208, and then sort of in general, how you think we should go about funding schools, if not through, taxes like bonds and overrides. What exactly should we be doing? Representative Payne, since you were just talking, we'll stay with you. First, your stance on Invest in Ed, and if you're not a supporter, what should we be doing about school funding?
Thank you, Arren. I'm definitely not a supporter in that Prop 208. That raises taxes on the so-called wealthy, and it also raises taxes on the small businesses. It excludes business corporations, but it hits small businesses. Mom and pop operations need that money worse than anybody else. And we have managed to fund school funding a tremendous amount, billions of dollars. In fact, the largest expenditure we have in our budget is for education. And we've managed to do that without raising any taxes at all. Ms. Knecht actually supported Prop 204 way back, I think that was 2007 or 2008, something along those lines. And that was going to raise a penny tax on the electric, and it went down in flames. However, we managed to do this. We have brought, we've got $11,000 per student now at all the schools, and we've managed to do that without raising taxes at all. So I'm very proud of that fact. We've worked hard to do it. So more money, we keep, we had almost $1 billion in surplus before COVID happened. That's not including the rainy day fund. That's surplus money. And we got that because of our friendliness to business and bringing in more businesses and corporations, high paying jobs. That has allowed us to have a much larger tax base, and we capitalized on that. So again, the highest school, $11,000 per student. We've never had that before in the history of Arizona, and we did it without raising taxes.
Arren.
Yeah, please go ahead.
A lot of that money is federal money and local money. And I think we need to remember, first of all, there's a lot of things that are floating around right now. Let's talk about bonds and overrides. I totally support bonds and overrides, but I long for the day that we don't have to ask our local taxpayers to tax themselves to pay for their local schools, especially when those local schools are responsible for raising their property taxes, lowering crime rates, making healthy communities, and preparing kids for our workforce, which, by the way, brings higher paying jobs and boosts our economy and creates an upward circle. I am a defender of the taxpayer. I am a plaintiff in the capital funding case because it's not fair that the state, the legislature, hasn't done its job in funding capital. And school districts that cannot pass those bonds to improve their schools, they're left in the dust with crumbling schools. And the ones that do pass bonds, they have to pay a higher property tax. So let's put the responsibility where it belongs with the Arizona State Legislature, which since 2009 has cut more from education than any other state in the nation and has refused to put enough of it back. 20 by 2020, I probably would have voted for that myself because it was a step in the right direction. It did put some dollars in teachers' hands, but it's not enough. We are not beyond where we were in funding in 2008. When you factor in inflation, that is wrong. That does not keep Arizona competitive with states around us. It does not attract businesses. It does not attract residents to Arizona. We have got to make education funding the priority it deserves to be in this state, or we will never be able to compete.
So does that mean creating new revenue through new taxes or increased taxes as would be enacted by Proposition 208?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Well, the state legislature can't raise taxes, and Mr. Payne knows that. We need a 2/3 supermajority to have a new tax here in the state of Arizona. So what we need is really smart people to be down there and figuring out new ways where we're going to raise revenue, and there are ways to do that. And I think the best way to do that is what I just mentioned. We need to attract higher paying jobs to Arizona in general. And I want to attract higher paying jobs to the Northwest Valley. Where are the tech jobs? Where are the creative jobs? And the demand for medical care up here in the Northwest Valley is just exploding. We need to attract those workers here. And what will happen is the small businesses will come around those larger industries. We will have a booming, thriving, vibrant community with the kind of restaurants that we want, with the kind of amenities that we want, that attracts younger workers with younger families. Key to this, fundamental to this happening, is having schools that are well-funded and attractive to families that have kids, and that is attractive to businesses that want to have a workforce that is prepared to get to business.
So I'll hold you to a specific answer because we have a lot of voters from both parties asking us, do you support the Invest in Ed ballot initiative Proposition 208?
I do support Invest in Ed because the legislature has offered no alternative. You know, it's pretty disheartening that voters need to bring this to the ballot because the legislature for 12 years now hasn't done its job. They failed to repair the damage that they did after the recession, which was $4.5 billion cut. And look, whether this passes or not, I'm going to go down to the state legislature and I'm going to be a champion for restoring funding to education because our entire economy and our entire quality of life is dependent on it. And it's gone unaddressed for far too long.
Great, thank you. Beverly, now we'll go to you. What is your stance on Proposition 208 and on the school funding issue more broadly? Have we done enough as a state since we made those cuts in the recession?
Oh, well, thank you very much. I do not support 208. It will hurt, small businesses. And then just to let you know that $4.6 million is coming in to support 208 from outside the state. So I don't think that's correct. And then in terms of education, right now, 48% of the state budget is for education. And the thing is not to just look at the money, but to look at what we're getting for the money that we're spending. In Peoria, 70% of our 11th graders can't pass the English language AZ merit. So in order to get those educated students, we're going to have to change things around. In Peoria, we've started out phonics at an earlier age, but we're not going to see those changes until the later age or later grades. So in terms of the funding, we have 48% that goes from the state to pay for education. What we have to look at is what are we getting out of the money that we're spending? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Arren, can I chip in again?
Please.
On this?
Yeah.
Arizona attracts more jobs than any other state in the country. We are growing the state faster than any other state. I can't imagine that we've done things so wrong that people want to move here more rapid than anywhere else in the country. We have invested more than $4.5 billion in K-12 education, a 5% increase annually over the past 6 years. Most of that came in the last 3 years. So I'm very proud of that voting record. I don't know, anytime I've ever asked, how much is enough? I never get an answer. So I ask, how much is enough?
It would be enough if Arizona teachers made...
Kathy, you want to answer that?
Yes, please. It would be enough if Arizona teachers made the median wage across the United States. That would help Arizona to be more competitive.
Arren, I'm sorry.
You don't have to ask me, just go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Again, $11,000 per student. We have brought in a tremendous amount of money. The teachers in our district are now averaging around $60,000 per person. They all got a 20% pay raise or close to it. And we certainly supplied the money. It was up to the school boards on how much they actually gave. But instead, they moved a lot of that money towards administration. And that wasn't what it was meant for, but the school boards have that right to do that. They do control those funds. All we do is fill the bucket, and then they distribute the money in that bucket. So to blame that on the please don't interrupt me. I didn't you. So to blame that on the legislature is quite odd, frankly.
Arizona's teachers are some of the lowest paid in the nation. Arizona's per pupil spending is still around 48. People can argue 47, 49, 48. And Arizona pays its administrators less than the national average.
And can I chime in, Arren? Yeah, for Peoria, we did give our teachers in Peoria the 20% in the last 3 years. And our average teacher pay is $52,500 in Peoria.
I have a lot of questions here from voters while we're on the subject of education. I have a lot of questions about school reopening. Obviously, questions on a lot of our minds right now. One specifically for you, Beverly, that I think we'll get started with. You were one of, I believe, two votes, on the Peoria Unified School District Governing Board, who in August voted unsuccessfully for schools in the district to fully open for in-person instruction by September 8th. I think some voters Well, some wrote to us critical of that decision. Some were in support. I'm wondering if you could sort of explain why you voted in that way, why you think schools should open immediately, and what we can do to help them do that safely.
Well, we've had all summer to get prepared for this. Schools, charter schools around us are reopening. One of the large ones has reopened last Monday. And so I did vote to open them up. I think they can be opened safely. In Peoria, we have 33% of the students that have opted for virtual learning. We had purchased a program called Florida Virtual. And right now it is not doing very well for our younger grades. Where I'm getting a ton of complaints. About a month or so ago, I received about 350 emails over the weekend from teachers that did not want to come back until October. And that's fine. I read all of them. A lot of them, though, was a form letter. And some did write some extensive letters. And then I did at a last board meeting, or a couple board meetings ago, I asked for the parents, because we hadn't heard from the parents. And right now, my position is the parents are paying the bills, they're paying the taxes, they are having to stay home. I'm getting a ton of emails from parents that they're having to work on the weekends to take off time through the week. I talked to one person who was a person who had left the district, who was helping her granddaughter. She had a teacher that got on for 15, 16 minutes for her granddaughter, and she had to help her from about 8:30 to 3:30. So we're seeing, my feeling is we have to look at the whole child. We have children that get their meals from school, teachers that are there to see if kids are hurt, and students confide in their teachers. It's a safe place for students, and the socialization that they get from being at school. We're losing all of this, and I think Peoria has I believe about 40% minority. And I'm afraid that the students that don't get that extra help that they need, and extra tutoring and stuff, they're going to fall further behind. So I felt that we could open up safely. I voted. I was in the minority, and so right now the superintendent is looking at a phase-in approach. So again, it's a policy that I signed. I took a vote. I was in the minority, and so that's the majority said we're going to keep them closed. So, thank you.
I'm muted. Sorry, Kathy. I'd like to pull you in on this. We've seen what can happen. We've seen what can happen when schools open, maybe without the best guidance. With the explosion of cases in the zip code around Arizona State University. Does it make you question the judgment of your competitors, so that they were willing to reopen schools so early, or would you agree that maybe that it is time, and that parents have enough difficulties already? It's time for students to go back. What's your thoughts there?
Well, I've certainly thought about this a lot, and so have the people in our community, because when you talk to people on the phone or wherever on Zoom, that's what they're talking about. This pandemic has made life very difficult for a lot of people. And frankly, I'm pleased to hear Beverly talk about the need to address students' social and emotional needs. And I think the one way that the state of Arizona can do that is to fund counselors. Arizona has the worst ratio of counselors to students in Arizona. So that's one thing I'd work at when I get to the legislature. Look as the past president of the Arizona School Boards Association, and having spent as much time as an elected school board member as I did, I am a huge fan and believer in local control. The government that is closest to the people is the best. And we do know that kids learn better in classrooms with teachers. And we know that parents are eager to get back into schools. And I'm talking to teachers every day, and they want to be back in the classrooms with their students. So I would say that the declining numbers that we're seeing outside of ASU are encouraging, but until we can be sure that we're not going to undo the progress that we've made, I think the risk is too great. We have to keep in mind that students don't live at school. They're part of the broader community. And if we have a breakout in school, then the disease is going to go back into homes, it's going to go back into businesses, it's going to go back into the grocery store. Superintendent Hoffman has offered schools some solid benchmarks early on, and the state has now given school districts solid metrics and guidelines, and I think that those should be followed. And I think Beverly's proposal was to disregard those metrics. And she knows, and I know, that special accommodations are being made in our schools so that students and their families that need to be in person right now, that those accommodations are being made for them. So a worst case scenario would be to see the downward trend that we're seeing now go back, because we were all just waiting for this pandemic to be over. Mrs. Pingerelli, her proposal was to come back on the 8th, which is the day after a 3-day weekend. And if we look at Arizona's history on 3-day weekends during this pandemic, whether it was Memorial Day or 4th of July, we didn't do very well. And we saw massive spikes after those 3-day weekends. I would at least see if Arizonans change their behavior, keep their masks on through the 3-day weekend, and evaluate whether or not we can stick to those metrics, and then I'd start school.
And can I chime back in? Yeah, I didn't disregard safety. If a community is going to wait until a vaccine, it could be waiting for a while. I felt that we had 34% of the students that were online. So you're going to have less students coming back to school, that we would be able to do it. We had teachers that wanted to come back, some. We had students that wanted to come back, and I wanted to try to bring the teachers and the students safely back to school that wanted to be there. I felt that it could be done safely, and that's why I voted the way I did. But we've been working with our HR department. A lot of the teachers, a lot of the staff have expressed concern, and they've been given accommodations. So I felt that we had everything covered, and that's why I voted the way I did.
And Beverly, we agree on that. We want things back to normal for our kids and our families.
Representative Payne, I want to bring you in. Obviously you're at the legislature right now. What are some things that Republican lawmakers can promise voters that they'll do to facilitate the return to schools, school funding, or what have you, some way to restore some normalcy after this pandemic in our educational settings?
I don't know. Thank you, Arren. I don't know about other Republican leaders. I can only speak for myself, but I believe in science. I believe in doing things safely and responsibly, bringing them back in. What I don't want to see is schools opening up for daycare. We got parents out there that have nowhere to go with their kids, and their jobs have opened back up, but yet they can't go. Somebody has to stay home and take care of the children. We have given all kinds of money to daycare to help them out with this situation. Earlier, I heard a comment about school counselors. We have increased $20 million this year appropriation. That's an increase, additional money, and appropriation for bringing back school counselors and social workers to make a total of $32 million. Again, it's the highest number we've ever had in Arizona. So to say these other things is just irresponsible. But again, safely and responsibly. That's the way I'd like to see it done. What I don't want to see is schools offering daycare, and they're bringing the kids into the same place in the schools, the same schools that they would go to for learning. They can be babysat in, but they can't be taught in. Now, I don't understand. The virus doesn't hit people if they're being babysat. It only hits them if they're learning. I don't understand the logic behind that.
Great. Any other thoughts on this issue before we move on? Good. We have a bunch of voter questions about the subject of ESAs, empowerment scholarship accounts, and vouchers more broadly. One voter pointed out that in Peoria Unified and Dysart Unified, millions of dollars are redirected from money that could be used for public schools to school voucher program. What are your thoughts, each of you, on voucher expansion, on ESAs? Is this something that we should be reining in, something that we should be encouraging? And I think the question that a lot of people are wondering, does this take away money from public schools? Beverly, we'll start with you, and then Kathy, and then Representative Payne.
Oh, no, sure. Thank you very much. Now, I believe in ESAs. I believe in expanding them. Parents, I feel, should have choices through ESAs, through charter schools. I mean, parents know their children better than anybody. And I did write down a couple of things. So for if people don't know what ESAs are for, ESA program addresses specific needs of the student who have disabilities, are a ward of the court, attend D and F rated schools, or live on a Native American reservation. They also serve students with parents who are active military duty, was killed in the line of duty, legally blind or deaf or hard of hearing. So those are things that I feel that parents really should have the choice of where their students go, and I believe in ESAs. I think that being on a public school board, having competition will improve everybody. It'll improve the public schools. It'll improve the charter schools. So I think that, you know, all told, I believe that parents should have as much choice as they possibly can.
Kathy, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think families in Arizona have more school choice than probably any other state in the union. And, you know, school districts actually offer more choices to students than some of the other models. We have career and technical education, arts programming, athletics clubs, special ed, gifted education. But, you know, the underfunding of our schools has led to the teacher crisis that we hear about with 1800s. I've heard anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000, but I've heard 1,800 more often. 1,800 school classrooms without a certified teacher. And our classrooms are crowded then, and we have an inability to have safe environments. Now about ESA vouchers, they do offer a private school education to a specific group of students that Beverly mentioned. And those vouchers are not being threatened. But in 2018, voters overwhelmingly voted to the tune of 67% to halt the expansion of ESAs. Now, Representative Payne voted this last session to go ahead and expand ESA vouchers, and that bill would have taken public taxpayer dollars and sent them with students to private and religious schools outside of the state of Arizona. What does that say to our kids, and what does that say to our schools when we're actually sending money out of the state of Arizona? This year, ESAs took about $100 million, more or less, out of the general fund that could have gone to districts, could have gone to charter schools. And charter schools, by the way, are struggling with the same lack of funding as districts. They're having the same sort of difficulties meeting the safety needs, meeting the ability to pay teachers what they deserve. But the laws that govern charter schools, they're not transparent. They often lead to either legislators or administrators lining their pockets with millions of dollars. That's got to stop. We have to be accountable to the taxpayers and let them know when they pay for schools, when they pay their taxes and expect us to deliver a quality education to every kid in Arizona, that we're doing that and that it's fair. And let's remember, our district schools allow every kid who comes to the door to come in and have his or her needs met. And you can't say the same for charters and private schools.
Representative Payne, she just mentioned legislation this last year that would have expanded school vouchers. I believe for students in the Navajo Nation in private school in New Mexico, as well as for students in northern Arizona in a private school in Colorado. Is that accusation correct, that those bills were just funneling money for Arizona public schools to other states, or is that a misrepresentation? What is the justification for that legislation?
Thank you, Arren. No, that's not correct. Yes, they did you were absolutely correct in the Navajo schools. These were schools that were about a mile or 2 miles across the border, and these students had gone there. They have failing schools where they're at, and they have no other choice but to go there if they want a good education. And the other one that you thought was in Colorado is in Utah, I believe, and it's and it's actually the exact same principle. It's only a few students, and they're going across the border, and we have an agreement with these states in order to do that, and we've had one for quite some time. So to not do this would be irresponsible, to make them go to failing schools when indeed not only were they being forced not to go to those schools, they were being forced to pay the money back that they had already spent in previous years, and that's insane. An agreement was reached between those states, between our Kathy Hoppen and the governor to work all this out. So it was a really good deal for those students. They got to continue, and it's only going through the end of this year. So what's going to happen next year, I'm not sure. So.
But the soul of her criticism, I think, still rings true, right? And these vouchers are essentially taking money that would otherwise be sent for schools, either district or private in the state, to other states. Does that not ring as potentially risky to you, or a slippery slope in some way?
It's not, because the law is very narrowly written to only allow these few that are already going to go. It does. There's money that comes out of with ESAs or charter schools, for whether they're ESAs or not. Money comes out of the traditional district school if you transfer your child, even from one traditional school to another traditional school. That money follows the student, as it should. I call that backpack funding, and backpack funding is the way we ought to fund it. Wherever this child goes, be it homeschooling, another traditional district school, or charter school, or private school, whatever money was going to go to that traditional school that they were originally signed to, that's where the money ought to leave there and go to the other. And right now, only 90% of that money goes. 10% stays. So really, they're getting a free. Why they're so upset about it, I'm not sure, because they're getting a free ride. They're getting 10% on a student that's not even there.
I'm scratching my head why the solution to addressing failing schools in the state of Arizona that students are attending, that the solution is sending money out of state rather than addressing the needs at those schools and ensuring that every kid in every corner of the state has a quality school. And, while during this pandemic, let's start with ensuring that every neighborhood has Wi-Fi and a device when they can't go to school. I mean, shouldn't we be addressing the needs of the people in Arizona and keeping the dollars in Arizona?
Representative Payne, your response?
The money, just throwing money at a school doesn't make it a better school. We've proven that over and over and over again. There has to be responsibility taken from the people at that school, and if they can't get it fixed, then they need to be replaced. She mentioned earlier 245 school districts, which is outrageous in the state. We have some school districts that only have one school in them. 25% of those school districts have one school in them. Another 50%, or just under 50% of the school districts only have 5 schools in them. But they all have administrators, they all have principals, and they all have vice principals, and they're all making a lot of money. And she says the average per administrator is less, but we have so many administrators, it really makes the administration pay way too high. And that pay should be going towards the teachers, so that we can hire good teachers, pull them in from Michigan or Minnesota or Maryland or whatever other state you want to bring up. We should be able to bring those teachers in. That's why I'm for higher teacher pay. We need to make sure that we get the best teachers in the country and bring them to Arizona, not have our teachers flock to another state.
So let's talk about that. Is the real issue of education funding just that we are not allocating resources in the right way? Is our bureaucracy bloated, and that is denting teacher pay, or is that not really how this is all working out? Kathy, we'll start with you, and let's get Beverly in.
Well, I'll just throw out some statistics that I did already before. I didn't put Arizona at the bottom of the list for the last, 5, 10, 6 years, however many years it is. We've been at the bottom of per pupil spending for my children's entire education. And that's not good enough for me. And that shouldn't be good enough for the families in our community. And that shouldn't be enough for the people of Arizona. We're at the bottom of the list by many, many makers of many lists. And we need to do better. And polls tell us that again and again, that across partisan lines, people as individuals, as families, businesses are saying it's time that we put more money into our schools in Arizona if we want to have a bright future for those kids, for our economy, and for our entire future.
Beverly, we'll now pose a similar question to you. Kathy raised the point, why are we sending kids on vouchers to other states when we could be spending money to improve our own schools? Representative Payne had a point about accountability. Where do you fall on that spectrum? Do you kind of see some merit in what she is saying, or can schools not be trusted with that money?
Well, no, I think schools need to be trusted with that money. I mean, that's the way it's set up. The school boards have the responsibility for the budget. They work with the superintendent. If a school is having issues or in the district, they need to make changes within that district. Like I said before, to improve our reading scores, we started a phonics program. And you can't say that just throwing money at something is going to make it better. There are other states out there that have the score just as bad, but they receive more funding. I've been we have something called performance pay for teachers. I've been trying to change that because it pretty much, we show that about 99% of our teachers are performing or highly performing. It's based on graduation rate that we have never fallen below. So teachers get that performance pay no matter what. I've pushed to change it. Our kids went through Peoria from second grade all the way through 12th. They had great teachers at times. They had lousy teachers at times, and everything in between. I would like to be able to give performance pay for teachers who are truly performing. That would make them continue doing their great job, and then try to help teachers that aren't doing as well, bring them up. But throwing money just into something isn't the answer, and it is the school district's responsibility to change their schools and use the money that they have.
One of the really harsh realities of low teacher pay over a decade or more is that there are fewer people coming into the profession, and the pipeline is not filling up. We don't see as many people going into the colleges of education as we have. Now, I do think that the incentives that have been implemented to encourage people to go into education is a step in the right direction. But what will happen is if we can raise the teacher pay to a national median, what's going to happen is we have more people to come into the profession, and school districts, charter schools, private schools, whatever, will have more qualified, more experienced teachers to select from. And that's how we're going to see our achievement scores rise.
And I do agree, Ms. Knecht. I mean, in Peoria, we raised the starting teacher pay minimum to $40,000. And like I said, we did give all teachers the 20% in the last 3 years. So we have been trying to address teacher pay in Peoria.
And I would say that is not throwing money at a problem. That is investing in a solution.
Oh no, I agree. I agree. Our students, our children, are our most prized assets, possessions.
So let me ask you this then. If you agree on this point, what is the material difference in investing more money in, say, a district on the Navajo Nation or in another lower income area where vouchers might be more prominent, and between doing that and increasing or pledging to keep teacher pay or investment in public schools in Peoria at a certain level? I mean, how can you not apply that logic that you apply in Peoria to these other schools, such as on the Navajo Nation?
Is this one to me?
Sorry, yeah, please go ahead, Beverly, and then we can get Kathy to respond.
Well, like I said, having more money doesn't necessarily give you better results. I'm not as familiar with the Navajo Nation and what is being done there. I know Mr. Payne is, but I think that before you keep putting more money in, that you need to see results. So that's where I stand. Right now, like I said, the budget for schools funding is 47%. You can't, and everything else is a little bit over 50%. There's only so much funding you can put in until you start raising taxes, and until you start, and then you get businesses that will leave the state. So that's my feeling.
So I think Mrs. Pingerelli is talking about an issue of equity, and I think we see it 180 degrees differently. She's talking about results-based funding, which the legislature approved, which gives more dollars to schools whose students are already achieving. And these students are probably already achieving because they come from communities that are advantaged and they have maybe more experienced teachers. I think Arizona as a whole is served when we can put more dollars where the need is the greatest and raise everybody up. I think every kid in this state deserves it. Every kid in this state deserves it, and Arizona grows together when every kid has an opportunity to succeed.
And just from my perspective, Peoria is a very north-south. The north has a little bit more money than the south. The south has older schools. And you don't necessarily see a big difference in the test scores from the northern high schools versus the southern high schools. So I think that we just need to work. To me, you have to work on getting results. So thank you.
Well, every parent would agree that when you have more than one kid, they need different things. Maybe one needs a little more love. Maybe one needs a little more, strictness. Maybe another one needs whatever. Not the need. Every kid needs something different. Every school district, every school, every community is different in Arizona. And we need to be thoughtful about putting our invested dollars where they can have the most benefit for the most people.
Great. Representative Payne, you were saying something?
I was about to. Thank you, Arren. One of the, I didn't get to respond to, because we moved on, I didn't get to respond to the teachers and the Arizona Teacher Academy. What we put 15 more above and beyond what we've already done into the Teacher Academy. What that does is attracts new teachers to the school, to the profession. It attracts, it allows teachers to go out and get a master's degree, and it gets people to join into being, helping relieve them of their college, the amount of money they have to pay for college. They get help with that, providing they stay in there. And also the ESAs. There's been a lot of reforms this last year. We had bills this last year that SB 1224 that went towards reforming ESAs. It made it more transparent. It made it to where there were certain things they couldn't do, and they have a state board of education rather than what the district schools have. But they do have to answer to that board, and they get a lot less money than a district school gets. So we had 5 of the top schools in the entire nation are right here in Arizona, and it's not because we throw money at them.
Great. I think now that we have taken care of this subject of education, It's been about an hour. I think we've had a pretty solid debate, albeit a little focused on one policy area. Clearly, a lot of voters and families are worried about schools. I think now we will transition to closing statements. If each one of you could spend a couple minutes to kind of wrap things up. Representative Payne, you were just talking, so we will begin with you and then go down the line with closing statements. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Arren. Again, I'm your current representative. I've been down at the House of Representatives for 4 years. I think I've done an outstanding job. I have increased education spending beyond any time in the state. People refer to the 2008 that was unsustainable. It's been proven over and over again. Obviously, we couldn't sustain it then. We went into the Great Recession and money had to be taken from everywhere in the state, not just schools. But we've done a really good job at replenishing that money, and I'm very proud of that fact. I'm also the public safety chair. I've taken care of corrections. We didn't touch anything except education today. So corrections department, I took care of those officers so that we could get more officers. We lowered their age to where they could start, and we raised their pay. We did the same thing for Department of Public Safety. I've also I had a bill that brought in simulators for the officers to train in. We went from the #1 city or state in the country for police shootings and to now we're way down in the middle of the pack. And that was done because of the 10 simulators that I got, which cost the taxpayers not a dime. It's paid for out of a fee for traffic tickets. So I'm very proud of those bills. I thought they did an awful lot to further both public safety and education. And I thank the voters for attending.
Representative Payne, thank you. Kathy, please go ahead.
Thank you, Arren, and thank you to Clean Elections for having us here tonight. I love talking about education, but Mr. Payne is right. There were a lot of other topics that we didn't get to today. Look, I am working to unify Arizonans. And at the end of the day, I think we all really want the same thing. Everyone wants their children and grandchildren to have opportunities to learn and achieve and go on and have a successful and fulfilling life. Everyone wants to feel good and stay healthy and not go broke in the process. We didn't even talk about healthcare. I think if we would work cooperatively and quit dividing ourselves into red and blue or whatever, our chances of achieving those things would be so much higher. Trying to divide people by politics and partisanship just doesn't help us move forward together as a community. My experience and my practice is working with everyone as a bipartisan leader, and I have everyone's best interest at heart. I know how to reach win-win solutions without leaving people behind, and with, so that everybody has a seat at the table, so that everybody's good ideas can be heard, because good ideas come from everywhere. I hope that the voters of LD21 will join the doctors, the nurses, the seniors, the teachers, the firefighters, and parents who support me so that I can serve as your bipartisan leader and that we can finally fix some of these problems, especially now during this pandemic when the challenges we're facing are bigger than ever before. And now more than ever, we need strong leadership that's going to focus on putting people over politics.
Great. Kathy, thank you. And again, I appreciate you guys willing to get in the weeds on education. Sorry we couldn't have a super wide-ranging conversation. I do think it's something to care about. Beverly, let's now get your closing statement. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would like to thank the Commission for hosting this forum and my fellow candidates for joining me in the discussion about our shared future. As a voter, each of you will decide on the candidates who reflect your values, demonstrate much needed experience, and have the courage to solve problems. As a Clean Elections candidate, I have not accepted donations from super PACs or out-of-state donors who want to influence the decisions and legislations affecting our district and state. As your candidate, I make the following promises to you. If elected, I will abide by my oath of office and will always be accessible to my constituents. I will respect and defend your individual rights and honor the Constitution. I will be a champion for our first responders and the rule of law. I will work diligently to create prosperity by focusing on education, economic opportunity, healthcare, and safety. To learn more about me, please visit my website, www.beverlypingerelli.org, or visit my campaign on Facebook. Thank you and have a good evening.
Great. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your nights. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.